Jamie Mello focus on getting the setup and getting the balance in this car right. Mika said he's been a co-driver with Jamie for so long that he completely trusts his judgment. Of course, Tony Villander will be racing with Jamie for the rest of the season, but Mika kind of joked that when they first started, their new engineer, Walter Preston, wasn't really telling them much about what he was doing, and they were a little suspicious, but everything started to come together, and as you can see, they have a good handling car now.
Yeah, wasn't that the same Mika Salo who told us he'd retired from motor racing at the end of last year? Yeah, for sure, they're just going fishing. I think was his exact words.
Yes.
Some retirement.
Yeah. Anything to do with Mika and not driving racing cars, any suggestion that you have to take with a big pinch of salt, I would say.
I'm sure pleased that wasn't in his supermarket when he was pushing his trolley around in the months when he thought he wasn't going to be racing anymore, because I bet he was terribly competitive doing that. Reese, though, once again, you know, thinking around the box, if not completely outside the box. Let's just get one person to dial the car in and everyone else can deal with it. And that, you know, again, Dave Sims oodles, absolutely oodles of experience.
You really can't keep Mika Salo away from this too long, but it was kind of fun talking to him because, as you may know, he's dabbled a little bit in some stock car racing. I asked him if he was going to try to get back into it this year, and he said, you know, of course it's always about the money, but he did tell me, hey, look, last year I was testing with Trevor Bayne, and look what he did. He went on to win the Daytona 500.
Yeah, in some style as well, in fairness. Although at the next race he didn't have it all his own way, ended up in the wall, of course, but a very young man with a big future, Trevor Bayne. And he had some fun with Salo. Now, look at this. Hole in the air being punched by the BMW 458, sitting in behind him. I think that's just widening, Jeremy. I think if we had the set square and the protractors out, we would have seen that just opening up a tiny bit. But look on the brakes. Mika pulls, not Mika, you can call it though. The 62 guy's Tony now, isn't it? Tony Villander pulls it in just a tiny bit and puts himself in good position at the first corner. Can he again do a little bit of an outbraking manoeuvre? He looks early, goes to the left early, side by side, he's not there. Someone's going to have to give way, but he could just ease his way into position for turn number 3, which is coming up next. That's a super manoeuvre by Tony Villander on a very experienced driver, Dirk Werner. Racing room asked for and given by both drivers.
Fantastic. That was absolutely amazing. Fascinating to watch them go down the back straight, because the BMW definitely seemed to inch away, not by very much, but certainly by a car length or maybe even 2, but under braking, Tony Villander just closed right up, and what a great move that was through turn 1, and hats off very much there to Dirk Werner for just giving him enough racing room. It looked like that might end in tears, but both drivers thoroughly professional in the way they approached that. Neither was making it easy for the other, but they both gave another just enough room. And look who's right behind them now.
That would be Tommy Milner, late of this parish, who said, guys, you're having entirely too much fun. Can I come and play as well? Now right up behind his former teammate in the shape of Dirk Werner. And Werner's going to be thinking, hang on a minute, I've just been mugged by the Ferrari. Oh, I don't want the Corvette coming through as well. The Chevy Corvette sitting in behind this. It's been a pretty stellar program for Chevy Corvette, all conquering with the GT1 cars, but the GT2 challenge has been considerable for them, and it's taken a little while for them to just get the handle on this field. They had a very good start in their first half season and indeed took a race win, but last year were winless until the last 5 minutes of the season when they took the race at Petit Le Mans. Now, meantime, whilst one BMW is struggling to hold its position, the BMW in second position, Dirk Muller, is closing down on the leader.
And right behind those two is Jörg Bergmeister.
Trying to get his lap back.
Yeah, trying to get his lap back, exactly right, John.
That's very important, that. And there's no reason why, if he's not got a quicker car, he shouldn't go through here. Of course, the BMW, and particularly Pierre Caffer in the 51 car, will not want to let him go through. You don't give Flying Lizards and Thomas Blaum, who's their pit lane strategist, you don't give them an inch at all. The BMW's just eased past Jörg Bergmeister, so Jörg needs to pull something out to try and get that position back and try and close down on the Ferrari, which is the class leader. whilst this is going on, we're not forgetting that Frank Montani is leading in the Peugeot, and he's pulled out nearly 4 seconds to Nicolas Lapierre, the Matmut Orica Peugeot in second, and another 7 or 8 seconds further behind Marino Franchitti, still on the lead lap in the 01 Highcroft.
And last lap round was a very good lap by Nicolas Lapierre, because Frank Montani must have had some problems. He pulled up, he narrowed that gap by more than 2 seconds last time around. So as you said, the gap between first and second, Montani and Nicolas Lapierre, 2 Frenchmen, is less now than 4 seconds. Marino Franchitti, he's running a very consistent pace there in third position. He's about 12 seconds back, but again, he's just doing exactly what he needs to do at this stage in the proceedings.
Now, whilst we're looking at the variety here in the GT category with Porsche, BMW and Ferrari, the 99 Jaguar had problems earlier on with a burnt alternator wiring harness. The guys have been working all the way through this afternoon and hope to have that replaced and that car back on track by 5 o'clock, which is what, 2 or 3 minutes away.
Cool.
And that's important for those guys to get miles on that car.
Yeah, and
both cars look much better this week, much better.
Yeah, and they're running this year, the switch of tyres over the winter. They're running on Dunlop tyres now, and a bit of fascinating driver lineup in the other car, the 99 car. Bruno Junqueira, Cristiano D'Amata, and Oriol Servia. I mean, 3 open-wheel guys who have a massive amount of experience in all sorts of different cars, and very much looking forward to the opportunity this year. Oriol Servia, he's also planning on driving this year for Newman Haas Racing in the ISO IndyCar Series as well, so he's got a busy couple of weeks here. Last year he had absolutely nothing. Here he is this time pounding around Sebring for a week, and then next week he will be in the IndyCar at St. Petersburg.
Rick de Bruyne is with BMW in the pit lane.
Yeah, they brought the car in because it has a flat tire on the right front. They figure they're going to go ahead and make their driver change. They're going to give it full fuel, see if there's any other problems. You can see it's missing some body work here on the left front of the car. But the bigger problem was that flat in the right front. Meanwhile, Bill Oberlin's getting in the car. Dirk Werner gets out, and they're going to be ready to go back into battle.
Looking at that front splitter. You know, it's there for a purpose, Jeremy, and I know that the lower portion of the front valance is still there, but there are such small gaps between these GT cars that, you know, any slight loss of aero, maybe a little bit of a difference in the tyre wear. He's quite lucky, actually, because the part that's missing has got something behind it. Let's go back to the head of the field.
Oh, wow.
And this is Peugeot versus Peugeot, but it's Peugeot Works Peugeot, being Peugeot Sport. Oh, and Nicolas Lapierre dropping the left-hand side to Michelin's onto the dirt there in the Orica Matmut car in second place.
Yeah, you're right. It's factory Peugeot against
former factory Peugeot.
Former factory Peugeot, privateer Peugeot, but it's also 2011 car in the lead against 2010 car with a restrictor on the engine in second place with the privateer team. So this is a fascinating duel going on here right now.
And let's not forget that behind Frank Montani, Nicolas Lapierre is in a car that's not just here for this race like Audi is. Audi will change to the new car for the Spa round of the ALMS, and it'll also be, of course, at Le Mans Test Day on April the 24th. But the Matmut car, the Orica Matmut car in second place, this is a full season entry to the ILMC, so we'll see this back in the States at Petit Le Mans at the end of the season.
And you know, the cars look sort of, relatively similar, but yes, obviously the most obvious change is probably the air scoop above the cockpit on the 2011 car, and on the 2010 cars we're seeing right there, you can see those big scoops, big snorkels just in front of the rear wheels.
So if you look carefully as well, you'll see that there's a lot of detail changes around the sides of the cars and the side sponsons of the cars, and look at just how it almost looks like the new car is a little bit lower. Well, it uses the same centre section, but that's because the side pods on the new car are actually a little bit higher. It has a slightly different aero package to manage the air through the bodywork of the car.
Yeah, just about everything is different on the car. The rear wing is another of the more noticeable differences.
Yeah, with the swan necks over the top of the rear wing. Back down to the pits.
Hughes Desjardins, the Orica founder and CEO, he said, you know, we love to compete in the American Le Mans Series. Very happy to be here at Sebring. He said said it's great to have a good time here at Sebring because it is one of the biggest endurance races in the world. He said, we'd love to have a podium. We're going to see where we are Saturday night.
Yeah, and don't forget, if they do nothing else, yeah, they're racing for themselves, but also they're taking points away from Audi. Every position that they're ahead of Audi, you know, it's only one car, but it pushes both of the Audis down another couple of positions. Should mention that the Audis are in 7th and 8th now and have got back past all of the other competition and sit in 7th and 8th overall, as well as in the P1 category. But this battle, and there, in fact, is Alan McNish in the 7th position, the best placed of the two Audis, about to lose a lap. There's the 01. That's the 3rd place, Marino Franchini, and I think he has in danger of going a lap down here, is he?
Who?
Marino?
No. He's only about, what, 12 or 15 seconds or so, I think, behind the race leader. 16 seconds now, and in fact, the gap from 1st to 3rd. So, again, he is running very consistent. 1 minute 53s, 52s, 53s primarily.
And the battle in GT swings the way of the German mark. BMW, Bavarian Motor Works, have slipped back ahead in the shape of Dirk Müller. Pierre Caffer has given up the lead in the AF quarter 4:30. We have seen this car struggle towards the end of its stint with tyre wear. And in 3rd place is Tony Wielander, ahead of Tommy Milner. And Martin Ragging is still in 5th position in the Falcon Tyres Porsche. Here's the pass. Defensive driving by the Ferrari, and just, couldn't get it turned in. Couldn't get it to stick, and that again, for me, Jeremy, is tyre wear. Didn't have the grip in the middle of the corner. I
think you're probably right. He just couldn't get that car turned in. Couldn't get it to the apex. Could he slid out a little bit wide? And the BMW says, thank you very much indeed. I'll have a bit of that, and through I go into the lead. So Dirk Müller then back into the lead in that car number 56. We saw it had the problems earlier on in the race. They fought back. Joey Hand was leading for quite a long time. Well, for a short time, at least, before handing over the car to his co-drivers, and it's now Dirk Müller back in the wheel of car number 56 in the lead of the class. And already he's pulled out a little bit of a gap there over the 2nd place car of Pierre Caffer.
Meantime, the leaders are coming through that battle. 1, 2 and 3 in GT and 1 and 2 in prototype, about to explode onto the front straight here at Sebring. There is the leading Peugeot, there is the 2nd place Oreca Peugeot, and traffic now might be the opportunity for the bigger engine car to use the slightly greater torque figures. They've lost some power, but they've held on to the torque. And it did seem earlier, Jeremy, that in traffic the older cars, certainly in the shape of the Audis, had a little bit better run through the traffic. When they had to lift off and go back on the power, they didn't seem to lose quite as much engine momentum or engine power as the smaller engine Peugeot for the 2011 Regs.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, and all of the drivers are saying, you know, it's very noticeable, the lack of horsepower compared to last year. They're saying it's as much as 150 horsepower they have lost.
Huge, isn't it?
But and it's mainly, though, you know, the end of the straights, perhaps losing as much as 20 kilometres per hour over the speeds from last year. But it's noticeable all the way through the range here. There's still a good jump coming off the corners, but then the car doesn't accelerate in the same to the same extent they did all the way through the range last year.
So BMW back at the head of the GT field. Dirk Müller is leading in the 56 car. There was problems earlier on for the 55, and we'll find out what that problem was with Rick de Bruyne.
Actually, we were just going to talk with Dirk Werner. He's in a deep conversation now with Scott Remke, talking about the status of the car. Talking to him before that conversation started, he said he's actually pretty happy with the car. The problem with the front was really they ran over something with regards to the right front, but the left front came to a situation where they were coming up on one of the LMP1 cars coming out of a turn, and apparently what happened was the car must have missed a gear or something as a result. He's accelerating out, and the other car that he thinks he's going to be right behind didn't accelerate. That's what caused the contact at that point in time. We see we've got a car stopped out on the track, but in the meantime we're going to wait. As soon as Scott Remke finishes talking with Dirk Werner, hopefully we'll get in here and get a couple words edgeways so we can find out exactly how the rest of the car is going, because once again, all right, Dirk, the other Dirk, let's find out, are you happy with the BMW beyond the fact you have the flat and that little encounter with the other car?
The car was running strong the whole day so far, and we are still in a good position, although we had a problem. But it seems like everybody is getting his little something today. I mean, it's tough on the track out there, and to stay out of trouble is the main goal till the end of the race. Well, we're still in the lead lap. That is important.
you amazed that 6 hours into this, you guys are still going at it tooth and nail, trying to figure out who's going to lead this race? After 6 hours, you're still fighting?
I'm very amazed, yes, and the car was good right from the beginning, from pre-practice on, and now we're still in the lead lap, and we are able to fight for a podium, and that's amazing, and that's what everybody was working for in the winter, so now it's in our hands.
All right, Dirk Werner, a little bit of problems, but still in the hunt.
Bill Oberlin has just taken that car, his car, the 55 BMW, back up to 6th position overall. His teammate, of course, Dirk Müller, in the 56 car, is leading the class. It's not won over by any stretch of the imagination for the 55 car as well, as Jan Magnussen, I've noticed, has just come up through the field and gone onto the first page of timing and scoring, putting him in 17th position in the 04 Chevy Corvette, 7th in class.
Yeah, having just passed Jörg Bergmeister in a Flying Lizard Porsche, so you know the battles are still raging through the field in GT, and both the 04 and the 045 trying to make their way back up the field after that earlier incident in turn 17.
Marino Franchitti just getting caught behind the GT leader through the Jean de Bian curves there, and it's not really very much that either of them could do about that. The GT car just has to hold on to his line, and Marino has to take a second or a second and a half penalty for being behind him through one of the faster parts of the circuit. Now here is the 04 car. That is Jan Magnussen. Last he was in the car, he was being tipped into a spin about here by Pat Long. There's the evidence of the damage on the right rear corner of that car, but clearly not affecting it too much because one of the fastest GT cars on the track at the moment.
Yep. Absolutely, turning a string of very quick laps there. Actually, last time around there was a 2:03.6 for Magnussen, but yeah, all of the top 8 cars in GT lapping within the same, well, few tenths of a second, really nothing to choose between them in terms of ultimate pace, I think. But it's a question of who's going to make least mistakes at the end of this race is going to, I think, be the determining factor in who wins in GT.
And the Prototype 2 leader is in the... Well, you see, that's not right. He should be on the racetrack. He's just going to come past our broadcast booth here, and that's dead stick, I'm afraid, for the P2 leader. This is the Level 5 Coupe.
Christophe Beauchou at the wheel.
I'm trying to hear what he's saying there, Jeremy, as if he's down in 10th position, the 3-3 car. This is the car that Scott Tucker has elected to score points in the American Le Mans Series this year. Slight change of rules this year. You can't drive in 2 cars and take the points from the better placed one. You can drive in as many cars as you want, but you have to nominate the car that will be scoring points. 10 laps on the second place car is the cushion. So,
that doesn't sound good.
That's drivetrain.
Yes.
That's gearbox. No gear selection. He's still got motor there, but
He's done well to get it round to there, actually.
I wonder how he did that. Did he cut across the end of the pit lane?
I guess he must have done.
And rolled in. That is not under Judd power, is it, as it's going into the pit lane. You see, they've got their golf cart behind it. They really need to be in front. They're not quite Audi sorted, as it is pushed into the paddock area, and one or two of the spectators realising that they're on the Porsche aerial cam. There you go. That's better. Well done.
So that'll move Dane Cameron back up into 9th place overall and first place of the LMP Challenge cars, and Dirk Müller now, the GT leader in car number 56, up into 10th place overall. Yeah. Still nothing to choose between the Audis at the front. Last time around it was a quick lap again from Nicolas Lapierre, closed right up onto tail again of Frank Montagny.
So they've got about 20 minutes before they lose the lead of that. It's not a lot of time to find a gearbox issue. Meantime, the GT2 contest continues to be enthralling in the head of the field. This is the battle for first and second. A mere 6 hours and 41 minutes of racing, or if you prefer, for these guys, 167 laps. The red Ferrari is Pierre Caffer in the now aging but venerable Ferrari F430, which has done so well for Maranello and for its customers over the last, 4 or 5 years now. The leader, the 56 white BMW M3, brand new for this year for the American Le Mans Series, going to the European spec with the slightly different rear end suspension. Here they come, charging through the S's down towards turn 16 Le Mans curve, and then back onto the flat out blast down towards turn 17 Sunset. And Pierre Caffer, who's been involved in some really tremendous development programs, done prototype driving, as has Muller, of course, Dirk Muller, who's leading this category. Again, just look how much debris has been blowing around, a piece of carbon fibre just being blown down the back straight there. And the gap between first and second in GT the last time around was a couple of tenths of a second. It'll be virtually no difference this time, Jeremy.
No, it won't indeed. There's a great battle going on there. And we saw, what, 5 or 10 laps ago, Jörg Bergmeister was running kind of third on the road in GT. We wondered whether he might be able to get that lap back. Well, in fact, no, not the case. He's dropped back a bit from this battle, and he's now been passed as Jörg Bergmeister.
Oh, mistake by the leader. Sorry to interrupt, Jeremy.
No,
just catching the left-hand front brake. We've seen the BMWs do that on a number of occasions, and the 458 Ferrari just missed his turning point by a nut. And now look at that, there's nothing between these two, and surely Dirk Muller's going to have to go to the right-hand side. He's a bit late doing it, and that's left the door open. Pierre Caffer will go through. Now Dirk Muller will try and fight him up, but surely that's a done deal. Yes, it is, and that was from 2 corners before, Jeremy. Tiny mistake by Muller.
That's all it took, and we talked about a few minutes ago. The team that makes the fewest mistakes on or off the track, in the pits, on the racetrack, is going to win this race. Great move there, though, by Pierre Caffer. Took a full advantage. He was right there, ready to take advantage of whatever cropped up in front of him, and it was that slight little bobble from Dirk Müller.
And he's just been held up by the Porsche, the blue Porsche that he's trying to go by now, and that's cost him a little bit of momentum. But fortunately, Muller wasn't right there in his wheel tracks. And look at Tommy Milner. He's there as well. Tony Verlander, not too far away.
Actually, that's Jan Magnussen, which is what I was just about to talk about when you rudely interrupted me when Dirk Müller made that mistake. But yeah, Jan Magnussen, he's got past Jörg Bergmeister, and it's now Magnussen who's trying to close down on these two and maybe get back onto the lead lap on the road.
Yeah, he's more likely at the moment, lapping very quickly indeed.
He's pulled out quite a margin over Jörg Bergmeister since getting past him, well, certainly within the last 10 laps.
Bergmeister's still behind Tommy Milner. So Pierre Caffer with the 430 for AF Corsa, pole sitting car. Gian-Maria Bruni put the car in pole position. Former Formula 1 driver Giancarlo Fisichella, the third member of that team. Don't see a weak link between those three, do you?
Not many.
No. Into turn number 1. Just losing sight of the leader in GT behind the Audi Motorsport Experience.
They're so cool, these aerial shots, aren't they?
Magnussen's flying. Yes, they are. The Porsche aerial cam is fabulous for us, and the addition of HD from the aerial and the HD onboards really make a huge difference.
Last lap around, Jörg Bergmeister 2:11.3. He must have made I fancy he might have made a mistake, because that's more than the sort of time you're going to lose by traffic.
As the leader is held up himself there. Now, I'm just watching for this Corvette.
I love these aerial views.
Oh, they're fantastic, aren't they? Look at how the light's just softening now as the sun starts to just begin to drop down below turn 17, or around about turn 17. And Magnussen is coming, you know. He's catching that BMW at a rate of knots. And I think he's pulling Tony Verlander along with him in the 458. It's the next car back from right at the top of the screen there. The yellow Corvette is easy to spot. Then behind him, the 458 of Racing Competizione. And they're both closing down on the white BMW of Dirk Müller.
Indeed, particularly on the white BMW Dirk Müller. He's dropped back quite a long way already now from Pierre Caffer, who's made that move. And last lap around for Dirk Müller was a 2:05.7, which is a couple of seconds off the pace he had been running pretty consistently. And there is Magnussen trying to make a move on that BMW, coming onto the ALMS straight here. And again, that BMW's got very, very good straight line speed, hasn't it?
Changed the aero around the front end of that car as well as around the rear over the winter months. Nowhere near as complicated a look to the front end of that car as we've been used to seeing in the American Le Mans Series. And they've lost, I think they may have lost some drag from the front of that car. Maybe they are struggling slightly for turning and therefore for front grip and therefore for tyre wear. But it's a trade-off. It's that compromise, isn't the age-old balancing act.
It's very slippery on a straight line. And what do you need for Le Mans?
That would be straight line speed, mainly. Yes.
Yes. The Corvette's certainly able to close up massively under braking, but I reckon the BMW pulled out, I would say, at least 3 or 4 or 5 cars. Oh dear!
They're right in front of that battle we were talking about. Now, I don't think there was a touch.
I'm not sure.
There was a little lock-up by Dirk Muller. We'll see from the onboard if we get a look at that. But Dirk, I can't see any green Jaguar paint on the front end of there. The clues are not quite there at the moment, but that's rattled Muller, and Muller needs to be told that the Corvette is not fighting. I'm sure that Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan will be on the radio and saying, yeah, you can let the Corvette go if you really need to, but try and hold off the Ferrari, because there's no point in trying to defend a Magnussen that's not for position, particularly if he then loses a real place on the timing and scoring to the Ferrari. Right, now let's analyse this, Jeremy. Watch the lock-up on the left front wheel coming now.
No, it's definitely contact, don't you think? It could be that, I presume that's Kenny Wilden was in that car?
I think it was the...
He was awfully close. He could have tried just to maybe carry a little bit too much speed into the corner himself and lost it as he turned in there.
I think that might have been the 99 back out in the circuit. We heard that they were trying to get it back out there. Didn't have the damage on the front headlight that I was expecting to see. The upshot of it is that there's a little more clear road in front of Dirk Muller in second place in the GT category. Jan Magnussen is in 7th position and trying to get his lap back, and really needs to get past this BMW so they can chase down this AF Corsa Ferrari 458. The distinctive helmet of Pierre Caffer clearly visible through the plexiglass size side windows. And let's go to one of his teammates, Giancarlo Fisichella, is with Kelly Stavist.
And both of Pierre Caffer's teammates have been glued to the monitors watching this battle out there. He's now taken the lead. Giancarlo, what is it like to watch your teammate out there in that battle, and you're kind of sitting here helpless?
It's good. It's good because we are the leaders of our category in GT. We are running quite well. The car is fine. Unfortunately, we lose quite a lot in the pit stop on the refueling. So we need to keep pushing, keep the position top 3 until the end, go through the end of the race. Hopefully we try to get on the podium, but it would be nice to win the race.
How surprised are you at the performance still of the F430? I'm sure there had been some disappointment not to have the 458 out here.
Well, I knew the car was good and competitive, but I didn't believe to be that competitive on the top. Yesterday we did a pole, today we are running still first, so it's great, and we need to keep pushing.
Was there anything that you learned about the car in your first stint that will help you as you get back in later in this race?
Well, at the moment the plan is to go with to do the development on the 458. With next race in Europe is in a couple of weeks with the 458. I'm looking forward for it. There is a good potential on this car. We'll see.
Thanks, Giancarlo.
Giancarlo Fisichella as the battle in GT closes up again, and the BMW is right there with the Ferrari. This is the battle for the lead, as again that piece of debris which has been thrown backwards and forwards, and there's Magnussen trying to get his lap back, and there's almost a little dart out to driver's right from the BMW. I've got to say, I don't think he was close enough there, but he's beginning to put pressure on Pierre Caffer and induce a little bit maybe of doubt in Caffer's mind. Show the headlights, one side, then the other. See if you can just make a driver in front of you take his eye off the road or brake a tad later than he should do at a crucial moment through turn 1. And it's difficult to take your eyes off this, but we're a little bit late for our highlights package. But you know, if we do the highlights package now, you know this BMW is going to nose up alongside going down into the hairpin. So we're going to stick. Yeah, I think we'll stick with this.
We've got pit stops coming up for the leaders too, I reckon, any moment now as well. But look, isn't it interesting how the BMW had a couple of relatively slow laps and lost quite a bit of ground, but he's made that all up again now. He's right up onto the tail of Pierre Caffer. Here is the battle for the lead. He looks to the inside. He's certainly not close enough to make a move on this occasion. But look, right there, looming in the mirrors, that is Jan Magnussen.
This is absolutely enthralling. You've got to think now as well that there are people who are putting several £1,000s or euros or dollars value onto their F430s and saying this is still a very competitive racing car. And, you know, with the right kind of guys through the rest of the international race season. As into the pit lane comes Marino Franchitti from second place, and Nicolas Pierre as well in the Prototype 1 battle. As the GTs continue to scrap away, this is the Highcroft pit, and there's a driver change, and Kelly Stavis is watching it.
And Highcroft have been debating whether or not to make this driver change. It all depended on whether or not they were going to take tires. So at one point they had David Brabham put his helmet on and get ready. Then they backed him off a bit. He got, you know, sort of derobed again. And now obviously he's back in the car. And it's interesting talking to David Brabham this week because he said he took some time off from racing over the winter. He said it was really refreshing. He feels a little bit revitalized. And as Highcroft tries to figure out the rest of their racing plans this season, David will be heading over to compete in the FIA GT Championship in a Nissan. In fact, he'll be in Abu Dhabi next week. But he's saying that he feels so refreshed that he's driving better this year than he has the last couple years.
His hand comes off the yellow pit lane speed limiter button, and David Brabham, citizen of the world, is back out into the fray, having taken over the 01 Highcroft ARX 01E from Marino Franchitti. Good stint from Marino, did exactly what was asked of him, got out there, reeled the laps off, made sure he didn't lose too much ground to the leaders. And David Brabham now needs to dial himself back in, and here's the GT leader into the pits. So this is why we didn't do our highlights update. And we've got a full course caution. Oh. My goodness me, it's all happening. See, just what we would have missed if we'd gone for those highlights, dear viewer. Sometimes you've just got to roll with the punches. So the 51 car in the pit lane.
Now, I tell you what, Frank Montagny, I reckon, would have been due to come into the pits on this lap, by my reckoning. So this could be bad news for the race leader. Performance Tech Motorsports car is off the road.
And that's facing in the wrong direction there. Yeah, there's the...
This is turn 11, isn't it?
Yeah, just on the exit of turn
10.
Now that looks to me as though he might have come out of turn 10, gassed it up just a wee bit too much, and maybe spun up the back wheels. There's the driver, who is taking a well-earned drink. Pierre Caffer is out of the... You see, that's very difficult to do. That's just going to be messy. No, that's just... Oh, dear.
It just shows you how desperate he is, I think. It's hard work. I think that's Jarrett Boone there. This is his
and
first...
he's in an open top car, remember?
Yeah, quite.
Think what it's like in a Peugeot or a...
Desperate times and desperate measures.
Pierre Caffer has got out of the 51 car, and Jimmy Bruni has got back in. The driver on the side there. Sorry, who did you say that was?
Jarrett Boone.
It is Boone, yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks to Andy Blackmore, by the way, of spotterguides.com, because we've got all the helmets and the liveries for some of these brand new cars up on the wall in our broadcast booth here. Andy, a graphics wizard and long-time friend of us broadcasters, whether on radio or in vision. And there is the man himself, Jarrett Boone, just rehydrating at the moment. That car doesn't look too damaged. I can't see the right rear, of course, but
he's done a lot of sports car racing in the past, mainly though in SCCA level racing. This is his first time in the American Le Mans series with this Performance Tech Motorsports team. They're based down in Florida, and the team is run by an ex-racer as well. No damage.
Oh, nice pick up from the helicopter guys to show me the other side. Thank you. He'll be in trouble. He took the steering wheel off and left it off, so he needs to jump in and put that back on again, otherwise he'll get a fine.
Brent O'Neill is the principal there of Performance Tech Motorsports, and he himself was a pretty useful driver back in the old IMSA Camel Lights days.
I'm not sure how he's got there, because there are some very thick black lines going straight to the accident there that suggests that he went in backwards. Frank Montani leads, in need of a pit stop. Nicolas Lapierre inherits second place in the number 10 Orica Matmo. David Brabham has made his pit stop and he is on new Michelin rubber. That's how it stands with 6 hours and 56 on the clock here, and that is well inside the second half. And sports car fans, if you'd like to win a Corvette and take off to France, you can enter now for a chance to win a new 2012 Chevrolet Grand Sport convertible, plus a trip for two to the 2012 24 Hours of Le Mans. If you go to AmericanLeMans.com for entry info, it's all there. www.AmericanLeMans.com. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Here's the leaders in class for you at Sebring for the 59th annual Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, presented by Fresh from Florida.
There was a town held captive by an evil gas pump. It fed on people's hard-earned money. But along came the Michelin Man, who reminded them the right tire changes everything. And with fuel-efficient tires in place, that evil gas pump wasn't so evil anymore. Michelin Energy Saver AS tires can help save up to 109 gallons of fuel. Michelin, a better way forward.
Can changing your motor oil really change the world? Yep. Because this is not just another crude oil. This is new G Oil. Ultimate biodegradable high-performance oil. Made right here on our soil from renewable bio-based sources. So it's time to make the change official. Because if G can race in the American Le Mans Series, you can bet the Redwoods your car can run on it too. New G Oil, only from Green Earth Technologies. Get more at getg.com.
The Michelin Green X Challenge is a vital manufacturer competition within each 2011 American Le Mans Series race, and it rewards the greenest prototype and GT team at each event. Audi Sport Team Yost leading out in this race at the moment on their gas to liquid clean diesel. Basically, the race car that goes the farthest, fastest and with the smallest environmental impact registers the best score. As far as the GTs are concerned, well, here's how that looks, and you can follow the competition throughout the season on www.AmericanLeMans.com. BMW still clean, green and fast in the BMW Motorsport 55 and 56 cars. And remember, this is important not just for the planet but for the teams as well, because there is an invite to Le Mans up for grabs in the Michelin Green X Challenge. So I reckon this is full course caution number 7? 8. I
reckon, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And very bad timing for Frank Montagny in the race leading car number 8, the Peugeot there, right behind the Jaguar safety car. And he was due a pit stop any time when the caution came out. And you know, with this new wave bar procedure we have here, he's got to do several more laps before the pits are opened. He's able to come onto pit lane.
Let's see if he stutters into the pit lane. One driver who certainly didn't. Fantastic double stint for Scotsman Marino Franchitti with Kelly Stavist.
And Marino Franchitti just getting out of the car before it went under caution. And we've been talking all race long about how this Highcroft Honda doesn't quite have the power of some of those diesel-powered cars. So what's it like as a driver when you sort of get out there and your agenda is really just to keep it within the leaders and on the lead lap?
Well, it's pretty tough to watch them disappear into the distance. It was exciting to pass Panis on the first restart. But I think, no offence to Pedro, but he doesn't seem to be quite on the pace that Montagny and Sarrazin are on. When they're getting in the car, it's making big jumps out in front. So the guys are being very smart. The strategy of the Highcroft guys is really, really good, and it seems to be working well so far. So touch wood, we can stay on the lead lap. But this car's a week old today, so I'm really proud of the HPD guys and Michelin for the package that we have.
You've been here before. I mean, do you really feel like this car, you guys have put yourselves in the best situation to capitalize on anything you can?
Oh, definitely. You know, I'm a bit rusty. I haven't been in the car properly since Petit last year, and this is my first long run in the car this afternoon. So it was a learning process, but I'm looking forward to the dark because the car was really good in the night session the other night. So hopefully we're still in the lead lap and we can go at these guys in the dark.
Great double stint from Marino. Thank you.
Kelly Stavers with Marino Franchitti. Now, part of the tradition here at Sebring is that you get out in whatever vehicle you can and you make it look as good as you can. And for those of you watching on ESPN3.com, in just a moment's time, hopefully, you might... Oh, it's just behind the RVs at the moment. I have a feeling that there was something that we were going to see there that would be very interesting indeed. There's plenty of entertainment to be had. The amount of organisation that goes into some of the fans' viewing areas is quite remarkable. And the weather has been fantastic, so there's plenty of cruising on the infield. A lot of people on mobile devices and www.americanlemans.com with live timing and scoring, as well as live audio for your mobile devices, should be the first place for you to click. And it's time to get out the judge. This is fantastic. Look at this. Now, I'm going to suggest that that didn't come like that out of the factory. I don't know what is the clue for me on that. That's not the spec that they intended. Fantastic stuff. There's a big old school bus that's going around with the top cut off that has Audi R18 sides on it, but it's about 40 feet long as well. And we've got the satellite dish up as there as well to get the pictures coming down, as well as plenty of people trackside, making sure that they're well hydrated from their cooler boxes. And this is why sports car racing at this level is such a big draw. So much has been going on in the last 7 hours. We're inside the last 5. Plenty of corporate hospitality going on as well. That is absolutely front and centre trackside. That's on the driver's right as you go into turn number 17.
Now, from my perspective, there's at least 2 teams and drivers the timing of this caution has influenced in a negative way. One, of course, the race leader, Frank Montagny, who's, again, doing a great job to spin out the fuel he has on board to make it until the pits are opened. And with this new wave-by procedure, it's taken a lot longer than it normally would do. And when he is going to have to come onto pit lane, all the other 2 cars in the lead have already stopped. So Montagny then will go to the back of the pack for the restart. So bad news for him, and also for the 04 Corvette of Jan Magnussen, which was trying to get that lap back, wasn't quite able to before the yellow came out.
Let's go down to Rick de Boer, who's down with Peugeot in the pit lane.
We've heard a lot of talk about how the Peugeot is a totally different car. It may look a lot like the old 908. It's got the same numbers, but it's a totally different car. In fact, they say almost nothing transfers over from the old 908 to the new 908. But I can tell you, there is at least one part. This is it, the windshield wiper. And guess what? It is a factory Peugeot part, stock from a vehicle. This is the only part that carries over from last year's car to this year's car. I don't think we're going to need it today.
Rick de Boer, we salute you. What a pro down there in the pit lane for ESPN3.com. Well, this is an amazing statistic. Almost 69 out of the 163 drivers who are entered are making their first Sebring 12 hours start. It's a remarkable statistic and goes again to prove, Jeremy Shaw, that sports car racing is attracting people all the time. This is a part of motorsport that is growing and growing quickly.
Yes, it is. You know, a lot of people want to be involved in this form of racing, and the fact that we have 2 and 3 drivers in a car at each event makes it a little bit more affordable at some of the levels. It is still beyond the pockets of you or I, perhaps. But
no, motorsport is cheap
for those. For those who have the money or who are prepared to put in the effort and make opportunities happen for themselves. Here's the chance.
Pits have just come open for the prototype, so expect to see Frank Montagny in the number 8 Peugeot head down towards Rick de Boer. There's a driver change on the way for that car, and Rick will describe that for us. We're watching Alan McNish in the number 2 Audi up to 6th position. There's our leader on the back straight now. The Jaguar XKR pace car has been called for, did we say 8 times? Or is that...
Yes, 8, I reckon.
All right, okay. The first year that I was here and we did the webcast, there were 10 caution periods, and we ran 313 laps that year, nowhere near the record. The race won in 1999, the first year of the American Le Mans Series, by Tom Christensen, among others, in the BMW V12 LMR. 58 cars entered into that, and a couple of other names to conjure. Guess who had the fastest lap in 1999? Thomas Enger in a Judd, Riley and Scott. Pit stops coming. Rick de Bruyne is down at Peugeot. It's going to be full service for the race leader, and this is bad timing for Frank Montani and the 8 Peugeot team. Rick?
Yeah, as they bring it down pit lane, it's been interesting looking at what Peugeot's been saying all week long, which was they didn't expect to win this race. That's what they kept saying. Even though they brought a brand new car, even though it had been really sorted out, it's had a lot of testing. In fact, they rode off 2 of these during the testing. But they kept saying all week long, you know, we're really not here to win it, we're here to develop it for Le Mans. But now that they're in the lead, my gut says that they are in it to win it, and that's exactly what they're going to be doing. Right now the fuel's going in, they're cleaning the windshield. Obviously they don't need a windshield wiper because they got a guy doing it instead. As soon as all that fuel is in, then they'll go ahead and work on the tires. They've made the driver change as well. Stefan Sarrazin going into the car, Frank Montani going out of the car. Now the fuel is in, changing the tires, and looking at the tires, you can see all the marbles and stuff that have been picked up over a period of time as they've been going on these yellow flag conditions. But once again, easily going the tires in on both sides. Now they're going to be getting ready to get the car away. The question is, can they continue to have a trouble-free run for the rest of this race?
Well, Rick pointed out, we might just get a quick look at this front tyre here and see how much pickup there was there. It seemed to be that there was shards of rubber had been melted onto the face of that Michelin tyre from the slow running behind the safety car. There it is, look. That is not a flat surface anymore. Look at that, good spot by Rick de Bruyne. And imagine driving at 180 miles an hour on something that has that kind of profile hitting the, I was going to say hitting the tarmac, but hitting the concrete.
Yeah, but it's good that all that pickup has come out, have been picked up on the tyre while it came into the pit lane or during the caution period. But what's interesting to me is the fact it's been, I reckon, 13 minutes since we went full course caution until the pits were open. That's an awful long time. And hats off to Frank Montani for stretching out the fuel and getting into pit lane, because I was thinking that car might have to come in and pit before the pits were officially open, which would have been a much bigger penalty.
Yeah, he went full lean on the diesel map and put his slippers on.
Yeah, no kidding.
While he was driving that one round, just to make sure it was really just pottering around, just virtually on tick over. It'll have been up in the highest gear that you could keep that engine running on, and just letting it tick over and drag him round.
I bet he and the Peugeot engineers were really frustrated there, just waiting, hoping, open the pits, open the pits, open the pits, and lap after lap while they get all this field sorted out. And that's that's the one negative if there is to this new system. But it's been done for the right reasons, and it hasn't caused anybody any undue problems yet. So hats off to the guys for that.
Yeah, he would have struggled anyway. I mean, you can't help when the safety car comes out. It sometimes, the other fly, sometimes you're the windshield.
Yeah, and that's not the issue. The issue was at the length of time from when the caution came out to when the pits were opened. But again,
he was going to lose his position on the track anyway.
Indeed.
So he'd have just been panicking. I think they must have known that they didn't need a splash, because he could have, of course, got the splash of fuel had he needed it and come back out. He would have still been at the end of the line, but it wouldn't have been any worse, and certainly a lot better than running out of diesel. So they'll come round this time, and the GT category will head to pit lane, or will it? Well, there is the answer. We've got one of the BMWs in. The 56 car is Dirk Muller coming in, and there's a new driver waiting for that. Jan Magnussen following him down. He'll be desperately trying to get out before that car and try and get back to the head of the field and take the lap back. Who else has come in there? That is one of the Ferrari 458s, but is that the 062 car that's coming? It's not showing on the timing and scoring monitor, but it is in the pit lane. I can see it. Let's go to Jamie Howe down at BMW.
Standard stop going on for BMW right now. Dirk Muller getting out of the cars, helping his co-driver Joey Hand climb behind the wheel. The fuel is still going in this car. This team has used a single plug fuel lug for the entire last year as well as this year. They saved a few seconds on the fuel. Tires going on right now. Looks like a standard stop, very quick for this team, and Kelly's down with another one.
The Racing Ferrari 458 coming in. They made a driver change as well. Mika Sala is now behind the wheel. Everything else is going as planned for this Raceway Ferrari. They did say Mika takes a few laps to really get those tires warm and get comfort back in the car, but that could have something to do with the fact that he didn't do much testing in this. Jamie?
The 55 BMW also on the road. Look at the angle that this car is in the stall. There is no room down here. When all of the cars came in at the same time there, they had Audi in behind him. He pulled it at an angle. It took a little bit of extra time. It is so tight down here. Look at all of these cars headed back out on the track at the same time.
Yeah, and the Flying Lizard, the 44, got ahead of the 55, but more importantly, the 045 got ahead of a couple of cars again, so they'd lost some pace out there on the track with Jörg Bergmeister. Pat Long's now in that car, but he's made up some track position. Jan Magnussen, his car, the 04 Corvette, the Chevy Corvette, lost some positions there. They were desperately trying to get out ahead of the best BMW, and they didn't manage to do it. Now let's try and decide who didn't come in. For sure the 51 car didn't come in, that's Pierre Caffer. I'm pretty certain the 017 Falcon car didn't come in with Wolf Hensler at the wheel, but we'll see that reset as they come in.
Caffer was in, wasn't he? 51 car?
Yes, you're right, so he must have.
Surely. I was
We've got a slight problem on the timing screen. Sometimes it doesn't click over that they're in the pits.
Plus we only have 2 screens out of the 3 too, and I can't get an internet connection to work for the rest of the thing. But the 55 car did come onto pit lane because that had an outer sequence stop, but it was just to change the tyre, and they did. I think they just changed the tyre, didn't they?
So 045 is the Flying Lizard. There that was, and as I said, that has made up a couple of positions because he's now right behind that BMW, so smart work from the Flying Lizards. So who, if any one of the GTs, stayed out? They'll reset as they come across the line. The Krone Racing Ferrari 430. That's Alan McNish's car in the pit lane. He's in 6th position, and Jamie Howe is watching another slick Audi Sport stop.
Yeah, and this one is very, very calm. It's not nearly as hectic as it was earlier. They decided to bring Alan in a little bit later, give the rest of the teams a little bit of space. Their number 1 car, it was out of fuel. It had to come in at that last stop. Alan in now, just got an extra drink from the team, fuel and tires, and now he's out and underway.
And as every good driver does, he checks his mirror before he pulls it out. Now, something got away from them there in the pit lane, I think. There was a bit of pointing and shouting as the Scotsman left. He rejoins the outside of turn 1. This is the answer. They were pointing because the number 1 was coming back in down pit lane, and they wanted to clear McNish before that car came in and fueled. There's a shake of the head there ruefully from Mike Rockenfeller. He's not having a good day today. 2 punctures earlier on, and Jamie, you've got to think there's some frustration inside the cockpit of that number 1 car with Mike Rockenfeller.
Oh, you can imagine that frustration with the team as well. They had to bring the number 1 Audi back onto pit road again. Now, under this caution period alone, that is the 3rd time that the number 1 Audi has had to stop. He had to come in and get the 5 seconds splash of fuel just so that he could wait until the pit lane was open for the LMP cars. Then he had to come back in. However, when he pulled back in, the BMWs were in. There wasn't enough room to get the fuel into the car. So he had to do a lap and come back into pit lane and pick up some more fuel. But now he's back and underway.
That's how tight pit lane is. Peugeot stop. This is the 7 car. Rick de Bruyne is overlooking this stop.
Boy, you know, it's just a tale of 2 cars for one team. You got one team that's at one of the cars that's out front running away, doing a great job, and you've got the other car. As a result of that incident earlier today with Marc Genet, as a result, they are now going to have to be way off the pace. Yes, they're coming in, they're doing the work. At this point, no driver change, no tire change, they're just doing fuel. And now at this point in time, really, it's just a test session, getting ready for Le Mans, because they talked about the fact, you know, it's like Frank Sinatra said, if they can make it here, they can make it anywhere. They need to get as many miles on this track today as they can.
Thank goodness we don't have Nick Damon down there. He would have broken into song by now. It's interesting actually, because Audi are actually here at Sebring on Monday for a test with the R18, the new car that they'll be debuting in terms of competition at Spa. And So Peugeot turning the remaining 4 hours and 45 minutes of this race into a test section. Nicolas Lapierre leads for Peugeot, but this is the Oreca Peugeot. We're coming back to green flag racing as the Jaguar peels off right-handed into the pit lane. In the GT category, it is the 51 of Pierre Caffer who leads for AF Corsa from Dirk Muller, the 56 BMW in second, and then Mika Salo, the 062-458 Italia for Risi Competizione in third, ahead of Bill Oblin in the 55 GT in fourth, the 017 of Wolf Hensler, that's the Vulcan car in fifth, and rounding off the top six, the 03, that's the first of the Corvettes for Tommy Milner. That's what happened in the GT category, and that's what we're looking at now as they go through, along with the GTC lead as well, with the 030 and the 077 car. There they are battling. The 054 of Damien Faulkner is a lap back, but trying to get his lap back from the leaders. That's the Black Swan car, the white, black and green machine that we caught a glimpse of there at the head of this huge train of cars. And there's your leader. There's the former leader, should I say, in third place at the moment for Stefan Sarazan. Just the wrong time for that yellow flag for the Peugeot, and he's having to fight through all of this traffic, and that's what it means. Makes it a bit more exciting for Stefan, though, when he gets in the car.
Absolutely right. He's now going to have to work a little bit harder now, doesn't it, to make his way through all this traffic and make sure he doesn't hit anything. David Braben's made a good jump ahead of a whole gaggle of cars that was just ahead of him coming up for the restart, and I think he's now got himself into some clean air, as we can see right as we ride on board with David Brabham.
Yeah, that is a shot we haven't seen very much of from any car, other than at the very start of a session, or indeed coming back after a yellow flag. David Brabham is 5.6 seconds behind, or at least it was about 3.7 miles ago as he comes across the line. Let's find out the new gaps between the 10 Oreca Peugeot and David Brabham in the 01 Highcroft. It's just under 7 seconds, so David now with a bit of clear air needs to see what he can do about this car ahead of him. This is your leader, resplendent in its new colours, and there is Brabham chasing in second. They've got, I reckon, 2.5 to 3 laps after any full course caution to actually get the hammer down and use the open road that they have in front of them. Yeah,
that's right. But during that time, they've got to get their tyres up to proper optimal working temperatures as well. That's not quite so easy sometimes, and we've seen that the Peugeot, particularly number 10, I think in the HPD of David Brabham, he's able to get his tyres up to temp a little bit quicker, I think. But yeah, the fact that Nicolas Lapierre has clean road ahead of him, that's a huge advantage.
Certainly the older Peugeot with more downforce will get heat into its tyre quicker than the newer car that has a little bit less drag. Although, of course, to balance that out, talking about balancing earlier on, the new car's got a bigger contact patch with those 18-inch front rubber, rather than the slightly smaller rubber on the older car. Swings and roundabouts in all forms of motor racing, again, in one way it means you have a slight disadvantage in others, and getting those numbers right is part of the science of motor racing. Stefan Sarazan in third position then. So Mathieu Lehay in fourth position for Oak Racing. Now let's just take you back to a few moments ago. Let's just remind Dumas talking to that is that's Lena, that is his engineer, and I don't think he's happy with the way the car's handling. Do you?
I'm not sure. I don't think he's talking about the handling though, is he?
Well, it's happened twice. Yes, it's happened twice. It's happened over there and behind me. Is he ordering drinks at the Nürburgring Nordschleife? I don't know.
Not at all happy. He's not talking about the handling of the car. I think it's that when he was called into the pits, it's got something to do with the strategy, I think, that Romain Dumas is not too happy about. Making his point there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's
in no uncertain terms.
As my old grandmother would have said, God rest her soul, he's not backward in coming forward. Is young Mr. Dumas, is he?
So there is David Brabham, helped Japan on his helmet visor there. A citizen of the world, David Brabham describes himself as, quite rightly. lived just about everywhere in the world. And the red car in between the two leaders is the LMPC Challenge leader, car number 036. It's Michael Gouache taken over after a fabulous stint by Dane Cameron. And Michael Gouache, I think they must have made that pit stop right at the end of that window during that lengthy caution period, which meant Gouache was right, way out of touch with everybody else. So he's lost another lap now. In actual fact, now Ryan Lewis in the PR1 Matheson Motorsports LMPC car is in second place, and he's only now one lap behind the 036 car. So that battle, there's going to be a battle for LMPC before too long.
Right, we also need to pay off a story that we followed earlier on when the level 5 coupe went behind the wall when it was leading P2. Now, I haven't seen that car come back out again, and I'm looking at the top 34, which is all we can see here, and I don't see a P2 car anywhere on that list. So we know it had 10 laps on its nearest competitor, and that was some time ago. So we'll endeavour to find out what's going on with the P2 category. But once again, it seems that the P2 cars have gone back to as they were maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where they were somewhat fragile, particularly in the longer races.
Yeah, the production-based engines they've had to go to this year, haven't they? And all new engines as well. So yeah, they really don't have much development on them at all. So I think that's probably to be expected. It's going to be a while before they get them the reliability up to where they need it to be.
So David Brabham then in a hot pursuit of Nicolas Lapierre. Not closing down on him just at the moment, but still with a decent amount of clear space. That design is growing on me. This car, of course, born in virtual reality. Nick Worth of Worth Designs. And there's the answer. And the answer is very good if you're a follower of Nissan, because the Signatech Nissan Oreca 03 with Frank Moyer at the wheel. What a smashing chap he is, by the way. After some gearbox problems, took it out of the lead of that class, what, a couple of hours ago now? Something like that.
At least.
It was the end of the third driver's stint, because Luca O'Donoghue came into the pit lane to hand the car over, and the car had some gearbox problems whilst it was in the pit lane. And they've gone through, I would suggest, another couple of driver stints since then, because you'd expect that Soyer Liari would have gone in the car next, and then Frank Moyer. But they are now leading the P2 category on debut with this Oreca chassis, which has been optimised for use with the Nissan engine. It can be used with other engines as well, but effectively this is a works Oreca chassis with a works-supported Nissan engine. The Nissan engine is available to privateers, but there's certainly Nissan Europe right behind this car, and we'll see it again in Petit Le Mans later in the year here in the American Le Mans Series. So Nicolas Lapierre with something like 6.5 seconds on David Brabham, as we are on lap number 195. It's the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, presented by Fresh from Florida.
It was a town held captive by an evil gas pump. It fed on people's hard-earned money. But along came the Michelin Man, who reminded them the right tire changes everything. And with fuel-efficient tires in place, that evil gas pump wasn't so evil anymore. Michelin Energy Saver AS tires can help save up to 109 gallons of fuel. Michelin, a better way forward.
Can changing your motor oil really change the world? Yep. Because this is not just another crude oil. This is new G Oil. Ultimate biodegradable high-performance oil. Made right here on our soil from renewable bio-based sources. So it's time to make the change official. Because if G can race in the American Le Mans Series, you can bet the Redwoods your car can run on it too. New G Oil, only from Green Earth Technologies. Get more at getg.com.
The skies above Sebring have been clear, Florida blue all day. And the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, presented by Fresh from Florida, is almost 7.5 hours old. And we've had action pretty much all the way The Porsche aerial camera shows you the extent of the 3.7-mile circuit and also the extent of the crowd who are packing every single available piece of tarmac, concrete or grassed area to watch this race unfolding for the 59th time in its history. The leader is still Nicolas Lapierre in this grandfathered and still slightly smoky Peugeot 908 HTI FAP. Clearly nothing too much to worry about. Jeremy Shaw, who's alongside me.
And he's just overtaken there. The white and green Porsche is running second. That's John Potter, the team owner for Magnus Racing. He's running second in GT Challenge. And the car we saw off the road here, the NGT car, the black and Dayglow coloured car, we saw it off the road at the exit of the hairpin. That is the class leader.
And they've just gone back past what looks to be a problem for the 002 of Ed Brown, or was he just getting out of the way? I think he was just getting offline. Oh, and he's almost picked up by the Corvette of Tommy Milner there. No, I think Ed's got a problem. I think Ed Brown's got a problem in that Extreme Speed Motorsport. Some kind of linkage problems he's reporting to the pit lane, so he'll be limping back to the pit lane in about a mile and a half's time. There is the slightly damaged Jaguar that we've seen from earlier on. This is the 098 car. Point should be made again. It's a much better showing by the Jaguar. The car looks leaner and meaner this year than ever before. Slight change to the paint job, but not too much. Oh, now that is the PR1 Mathewson car, and that is well alight on the rear three-quarters of that car. Great work by the corner workers, all ready to get that car. This is the 52. Ryan Lewis, second place in LMPC. Ryan heads up driving, looked for the marshal's post there, no doubt in my mind at all.
No, absolutely right. He is a smart young man, is Ryan Lewis, and he knew exactly what he was doing there, getting across to the corner workers as quick as he can and just minimise the damage to that car. But what a shame for those guys. They got themselves from 3 laps down back to within a lap of the class leader in LMPC, and now it's all gone wrong.
The second of the LMP cars to have had a fire today. Johnny Morlam had a fire earlier on.
Blown engine yesterday in qualifying as well, and I fancy that might be the same, to be honest.
Yeah, that looks like it's coming from round about the back of the engine and the exhaust. That'll be a bit of oil or something getting onto the hot. Ooh, yes, both sides. That's given up big style. And you can see the driver. If you were watching the wing mirrors there, you can see the driver looking for where the white marshals were. Look, he sees the flame there, looks one way, looks the other. All right, okay, I'm thinking about getting my belts off. Where's the guys in white? I might hit the wall here, but really I don't mind because I need to get out of this car as quickly as possible. Nice reaction from the corner worker. Pulls the pin, gets onto it straight away to minimise the damage. And in fact, as soon as Ryan saw that, I think he slowed down what he was doing because he realised he was getting the attention that he needed. That's good work by everyone concerned. Thanks again to all of our corner workers, marshals as we call them in Europe. And don't forget, if you want to get involved in motor racing at the highest level possible, you or I, most men in the street or women in the street can't possibly compete at the kind of level that we're watching here now. But to take part in the sport, you could volunteer to be a corner worker or a marshal, whether here in the States or across Europe. There are never enough of them, and it is really, really important that we get plenty of them on the scene, because of all the people that are around racetracks, there are quite a few, I'm sure, that we could do without in terms of the organisation. However, the men and women in white and orange aren't among them, and our hats off to all of them for giving up their free time to make sure that we and you back at home get to see your motorsport. So ask any of the guys at a track how you can get involved, and they'll give you details, whether, as I say, it's here in the US or over in Europe. Always a good thing to do to put something back into the sport. Ryan Lewis having a chat there with the ALMS safety team. The GM safety truck has just pulled up alongside. They're having a look to make sure there's no signs of any burns on the suit. It's sometimes you don't realise that you've actually been caught up in that, although that was a long way back in the car. I don't think that was a fuel fire, to be honest. That looked like an oil fire to me, Jeremy. Yeah,
it's certainly disappointing for Ryan and Kyle Marcelli and that crew there at the Intersport Racing Group. Tommy Dreesy, oh, sorry, not Tommy Dreesy.
just in the bottom left-hand corner of the picture, the Porsche Cayenne intervention vehicle, resplendent in its new livery for this season. We've also got a Panamera, I noticed, on the fleet in the same decals as our pace stroke safety car, the 2011 Porsche Cayenne, coming with diesel power already into Europe, and a hybrid due across the world soon, utilising all kinds of clever technology on and off the track. Porsche already having run the Flybrid 911 at Petit Le Mans last year and almost winning the Nürburgring 24 hours with that car. Porsche have been supporting the intervention vehicles of the American Le Mans Series for some time now, and I have to say, I think that new livery looks pretty spiffy on that new 2011 Cayenne. 200 kilos out of that car from the car that it replaces, and I've been lucky enough to be behind the wheel. I've got to tell you, that is a dynamic package for an SUV, a real Porsche in every way, shape or form.
So it's the 052 car. I was getting myself confused again there. It was the 052 car that's out of the race. It's Ryan Lewis was the driver there, sharing this weekend with Henri Richard and Ken Dobson. And again, a good steady run it was for those guys, and Ryan Lewis really was beginning to get that car back into contention. But they're planning on doing a full season here, and it's an extremely good organisation that Bobby Oracle and the Mathesons, Leslie and Ray Matheson, have put together there. And they showed their mettle last year by scoring several victories in this new LMP Challenge category.
Well, the medical vehicle is not required, so that's good news, and the Cayenne pulls away. Note where the GM safety truck, the right hand of those two vehicles, are parked in between the track and the incident, giving the workers and the driver of the car some protection. Gearbox on the 002, the Ed Brown car that we saw struggling around the track. So that was indeed a transmission problem. Still no word on the 33.
That was 8th in class, the 002 car.
Still no word on that level 5 car that was leading its class when we heard it go clunk coming out of turn 17 in dead stick and pushed into the paddock by the level 5 mechanics. And that car was the point scoring car, don't forget, for Scott Tucker in the American Le Mans Series, as well as the ILMC.
9th caution of the day then, and by my reckoning this is only 13 minutes after we went green last time around, so that 15-minute rule will come into effect, so we won't have the wave by before we open the pits.
And it should be open to everyone and not just the prototypes, but we're tight on that, so it is open to the discretion of the race director. Well, we've just been talking about the Extreme Speed Motorsports. It's not been a great day for them, losing their first car early. And Jamie Howe, second car, also with problems now for Ed Brown.
Yep, and it looks like for the Extreme Speed 002, it is going to be the gearbox. Right now, this caution period is really hurting them. They can't enter pit lane because the pits are closed, and it's going to take them about 20 minutes to rebuild this gearbox. Scott Sharp, team owner and also driver in the 001, he is not happy right now. He wants to bring this car in. He says we're losing valuable time. You can see the look on his face. He is just not having a good day.
They must have been very close indeed to getting that car in before we went full course caution, because Ed was trickling that car around the circuit. They'll take it behind the wall, of course, when it does come into pit lane.
Might as well get in and get it behind the wall. But
I would bring
take the penalty, right?
I'd bring it in and take the penalty. And it may be that Bo Barfield would not assess them a penalty, given that they're going to go behind the wall and they lose a lot of position. Well, now this is interesting. Didn't expect to see this. This is the pass-by going in, so it was right on the money, as you said, Jeremy, very close to the 15-minute rule, but close enough that Bo Barfield thinks it can be done. As I said, it is always open to the discretion of the race director. So once again, we'll get back to everyone who was behind their class leader being waved through to get back in line, and then next time around we'll open up the pits for the prototypes, so it will be a split decision.
I think one of the guys that are going to benefit from this is Tommy Milner, I believe, because I think he was trapped behind the race leader in relation to the other GT contenders. He dropped quite a long way back after that previous round of pit stops and going back to green again. The Corvette team 03 made their stop late in the previous caution period and came out a long way behind the rest of the field.
The other people who benefit from this are us, because the top three at the head of the field are back together with no cars between them again. Now, it's going to depend, of course, on what we think strategy-wise the guys will pit. So we're going to get some pit stops, and we'll need to work out who is going to take them. And we're hearing from the paddock that it was the broken rear wishbone on the 33, so that's what's been keeping that car out. That was the big clunk. It's the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, presented by Fresh from Florida.
There was a town held captive by an evil gas pump. It fed on people's hard-earned money. But along came the Michelin Man, who reminded them the right tire changes everything. And with fuel-efficient tires in place, that evil gas pump wasn't so evil anymore. Michelin Energy Saver AS tires can help save up to 109 gallons of fuel. Michelin, a better way forward.
Can changing your motor oil really change the world? Yep. Because this is not just another crude oil. This is new G oil. Ultimate biodegradable high-performance oil. Made right here on our soil from renewable bio-based sources. So it's time to make the change official. Because if G can race in the American Le Mans Series, you can bet the Redwoods your car can run on it too. New G oil, only from Green Earth Technologies. Get more at getg.com.
Well, we're under caution again. Fire in the back of the LMPC second place car has brought the whole field under the control of the Jaguar safety car. And we've got pit stops coming up. Question is, who'll take advantage? It'll be the prototypes who get first dibs at it when they come round last time. Just to go through one or two of the classes, the Black Swan 054 GT Challenger, there is the car that brought out the yellow flags this time around. Yeah, the 054 Black Swan Racing car had dropped the lap, but Damien Faulkner, just before that yellow flag, has been absolutely flying, and Demo has managed to get his lap back. And that's good news for the defending champions, Black Swan. Now let's go down to the pit lane. We'll be open in a moment. Before we get the rush of prototype cars, Rick Brule has something for us at Corvette. Rick, what do you got?
With all the cars on the track this weekend, really being able to look in front of you and behind you is hugely critical. One of the ways the Corvette guys are doing it, with a little TV monitor. They got a camera pointed out the back, and it points onto this. It's actually sitting right on the dash. They get a great view. Even at night, they say it doesn't matter what you can see. All the important thing is you see headlights coming up on top. But the great thing is, this is soon going to be old hat for them. They're working on a radar system that will actually give them closing speeds, a little more high-tech than just a camera that you can play video games on and a monitor.
Thanks, Rick. There, if you just look at ahead of the right glove of the driver there, of the Corvette, just in the middle, there you go, that one there, that is not the touchpad control for the very nice sound system. That's what Rick was talking about, to be able to see behind. So we're waiting for pits to open. Corvette's had that for some time. They used to have one on the S7R Celine as well, and I know that one or two of the prototypes, certainly the RML prototype, they have rear cameras as well. But this technology, of course, gets better and better with HD technology and cameras that can sort of automatically dim when you've got big bright headlights coming behind you. So there are the three leaders together behind the safety car, heading through Le Mans Curve onto the Ullman Straight. In third, Stefan Sarazat. In second, David Brabham in the Highcroft, just dabbing the brakes there, trying to keep heat in the carbon brakes and carbon discs that these racing cars have. Weaving side to side to try and minimise the effect of pickup. That horrible amount of rubber on the circuit, even though it has been brushed a couple of times now. In fact, about every other time we've had a full course caution. They've had the sweepers out. Good work. It's nowhere near as bad as I've seen it in the past, Jeremy, and that's down to the fact that IMSA have taken the opportunity. You mentioned it does take a little longer sometimes to get this pass-by done, but it's not like they're just sitting around doing nothing. They're using the time wisely, and I've got to say, yes, that is a disadvantage in some respects, but at least they're looking at it from the point of view of being able to say, well, you know, if we've got to have this time under the safety car, let's use it profitably.
I completely agree. It's going to make a better race for everybody at the end of the day. And you know, it's interesting. I'm sure the sweeper tests have done a fair few miles this afternoon. I think probably more than they expected.
Listed in 54th position at the moment, actually.
So definitely a benefit.
We'll have one. This is the Highcroft car coming in, I think, for just a splash of fuel, because the pits aren't actually open at the moment. Just 4 or 5 seconds of fuel, and then Brabs. Negative. It is open. It's open. So prototypes only. So Brabham, Nicolas Lapierre, Mathieu Lehay have all come in, and that was fuel only. Not even a thought of laying out Michelin tyres for Brabham. He's going to catch the red flag at the end of the pit lane. Get ready, says the man with the red flag. He takes a little tentative step to his left, and then David Brabham is gone. Also, that is the
good strategy there, definitely.
Nicolas Lapierre took tyres.
Did he?
Or at least the 10 car did. Let's see if they've changed drivers. I think it's Loic Duval who's just got back into that car. It should be on rotation. And yeah, it is. Mathieu Lehay has gone out in the Oak Racing car. That was fuel only, I believe, in the 15 Oak car in 4th position. Do you know what? We haven't talked a lot about Oak. 3 cars, 2 P1s and a P2. And they're not all at the sharp end of the field, but the 15 is, and I'm probably going to curse them. I'm trying to find something wood to touch in here, but that has been a tremendous... Jeremy says his head, well, mine as well, and in that case. So we've got a splinter there as I did that. The Oak Racing 15 car, there it is, behind the Matmut Peugeot, has run pretty well, and that is still Mathieu Lehay at the wheel of that car.
Definitely good strategy there from the number 10 and the 01 cars there to come onto pit. They didn't need fuel, but they're around about half the way through a stint, perhaps not quite that much, so definitely worthwhile to come in top off, and they can now go a good bit further than the race leader Stefan Sarrazin when we go back to green. But of course they are going to be quite a long way back in terms of the traffic. They've got to get past a lot of cars before they're going to get anywhere Sarrazin.
Driving very slowly at the moment, those cars. I know we're behind the safety car, but has someone ahead of them got a problem? There's a lot of dust there. I see, there's a sweeper there. That's what it was. I'm guessing the sweeper was changing sides on the track in front of the trade of cars, and that's why everybody got backed up a little bit. Sweeper and blower combined there, and they've been doing a great job. And it always impresses me, this, Jeremy. You know, we see these guys out doing something like this, and now he's just changed sides onto the racing line again, and he's got cars coming behind him. Obviously they're in radio communication, but just to be able to do that and have that guy out there requires a certain amount of coordination. Nice. I like the fact he can flip the sweep around either way there with the hydraulics on the front of the tractor. Now watch him as he comes back. There goes the sweeper. See, even our sweepers in the American Le Mans Series are high-tech and world-class. But seriously, it sounds like a simple thing to do, but you can't do it without having the coordination and the logistics, and the guy in the sweeper has got to be able to be listening to race control and the guys behind it. It's not something that just happens at the click of a finger. Well done to the IMSA guys for using the time profitably. Say that again. GT pits open, by the way. No takers from the leaders in the GT category. There is the 002 car. That was the Ed Brown driven car that had the gearbox problems earlier on. And in fact, having said there's none of the leaders in, Ahmed Alairov, the 062 Risi car, but that seems to have dropped down. Kelly, what's going on with the Racing Ferrari?
Well, it looks like it was a fuel-only stop, and they cleaned out the windshield, and that's exactly what it was. Mika Salo is back out on his way, and just talking to the team briefly, they said the one thing that they're battling is it's taking a while to get the tires up to temperature, and then a flag comes out, and they sort of lose the momentum that they're building in the car.
And for some reason, when the 062 car comes into pit lane, it doesn't show up on the timing scoring.
Yeah, that's
monitor
at least a couple or 3 times it's
Yes.
done that.
Odd.
So it's clearly a figment of our imagination. It's actually not there. It's managed to do 7 hours and 48 minutes without being in the pit lane.
It's only going to cost Mika Salo 1 position. I think he'll come back here in 6th place because Jan Magnussen wasn't able to get that lap back, so he still remains 1 lap down in 7th place in GT in the 04 Corvette.
Worthwhile giving you the running order in GT in a moment or two's time after we have a little more from Kelly Stavist.
Looking at the other Corvette, the 03 Corvette has lost a lot of time too, and it was really insult or injury compounded by insults. First, they had a windshield that lost all of its tear-offs. They all blew off, so the windshield was getting all pitted up by all the debris and gravel on the road. So when they came in during the last caution period, they put on a new windshield with new tear-offs because as that sun goes down, that was really becoming an issue. And then to add the insult to injury, as they were coming through pit road, they were charged with a stop-and-go for speeding in the pits. Although if you talk to Doug Feehan, he said they had this issue during one of the earlier practices, and Corvette was able to go back and show the officials that they were not speeding, in fact. So he sort of disputes that call, but regardless, they were charged with a stop and go.
Interesting about the windscreen there, because obviously the tear-offs, you think, well, you take those off to keep the screen clean, but they do actually protect the surface of the windshield as well, and that's what Kelly was talking about there. If you're just joining us, welcome along to Sebring International Raceway. Jeremy Shaw, John Hindhaugh, ESPN3.com. Let's go back to the start of the race and show you what you've missed. Peugeot on pole position, jumped away at the start. Alan McNish in the 3rd place Audi managed to get around his teammate Mike Rockenfeller and lay chase to the Peugeot for, well, a lap or 2, because Alex Wurz, coming through the field, decided that he wasn't going to let the Audis have it all their own way, and within a couple of laps he was back up. The GT classes, always good entertainment. Paul Sitter lost out to the Corvette of Ollie Gavin, but Jimmy Bruni down the inside at turn 1 didn't quite get it done there, but by the time to get to turn 3 with a tiny bit of paint swapping, it was the Ferrari 51 back in the lead for AF Corsa. Alan McNish thought he had a shot at being right up front after the restart, but got a little bit of a knock back from the leading Peugeot. Mike Rockenfeller, his day not being good at all. 2 left rear punctures, first caused by carbon fibre shards, and second by a little bit of his own bodywork hanging loose. That dropped him well down the order. And then the big incident of the first half of the race, Jan Magnussen being tagged by Patrick Long in the Porsche, and the big loser, the ESM Ferrari of Johannes van Overbeek, out of the race, but Johannes is fine. The prototype challenge class hasn't been without incident either. This just isn't right. I may not be a suspension engineer, but I know that part should be connected to the big bit. Yeah, that bit there. GMG had their travails as well, with a detonating Porsche engine dumping a whole lot of very expensive parts and oil. They were out of the race at that point. More contact into turn 17, this time the Peugeot and the Audi. Little bit unlucky, I thought, from the Peugeot driver. Dindo Capello gets clipped, but the bumps again certainly playing a part in that incident. And then something very odd. Watch this. Elton Julian turns the wheel. The car doesn't turn. There'd been some contact, we think, earlier on around the lap. The real staple has been the racing in GT, BMW, Porsche, Ferrari, all up at the front at various stages. And both BMWs have had a taste of the lead, and 2 different Ferraris too. Whether it's 55 and 56 for the BMWs or the 430 or the 458, there's always been plenty to watch. And then the final caution, the PR1 Matheson car, again with what looks to be electronics problems. No, of course not. It is indeed another fire. Good work by the corner workers. We'll come back to the green this time around. Before we do, let's have a look at the classes. Sarrazin leads from David Brabham at the head of the field, with Loic Duval in the older Peugeot in third place, and then that Oak Pescarolo Judd in fourth. Chris Dyson in the 016 quietly in fifth position. Good run for the Mazda Lola. In GT, this is how it stands, with Pierre Caffa in the older Ferrari. This is the 430 car, the 51 AF Corsa machine, ahead of the two BMWs. Wolf Hensler in the 017. This is the Falcon Tyres Porsche, just again quietly, stealthily up to fourth, and the best of the Corvettes in fifth. LMPC sees the Genoa racing car ahead of the Core Racing 005. Ryan Lewis a lap back in third place, and then multiple laps back for everyone else. Green, 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 and we're back racing. 7 hours, 51.5 minutes into the race, and it's all go again for Stefan Sarrazin. Where is David Brabham? He's trying to get through that traffic, but trying to do it in a very, very safe way indeed. And at the moment, it's advantage to Sarrazin in the Peugeots. Brabham is still to cross the line. He's a very long way back through the traffic. There he goes now, just through the start-finish line, 20.5 seconds back, and only a tenth of a second ahead of Loic Duval. Look in the mirror on the left-hand side. You can see the Matmut Peugeot, and you can see him going by into turn number 3. David Brabham's view of losing second place.
Great stuff. Fabulous footage there again from this HD onboard camera there on board the Highcroft Racing car, and David Brabham, the timing of their pit stop, it put him at the back of the pack, but he's now going to chase Loic Duval, and Loic Duval is a very quick young driver, and can David keep pace with him? We'll see. I think we've seen that the number 10 Peugeot has been able to get heat into its tyres pretty quickly, and certainly Loic Duval has made a great restart there and up into second place.
Well, we've got another penalty for the 030s car. This is another one of the long ones, so it's 2 laps. They're going to effectively hold that car for 4 minutes for taking the illegal pass by.
030, that's a great shame for the NGT Motorsports car. They got themselves back on the lead lap. They had
third place in GTC, that car.
They've been running beautifully. Carlos Kaufman, Enrique Cisneros and Sean Edwards, and that's a crucial mistake for them.
Drivers and teams learning the new system as well, but they have been briefed on it. And you know, if you're not sure, you're better off not taking it than taking it. Now we're getting to the time of day. It is just coming on to 6:30 here, just 25 minutes past 6 here in central Florida. And look at how the sun affects the view into turn 17. As if it wasn't difficult enough with all that traffic in front of David Brabham, better hope he's got a tinted visor on there, because otherwise he's going to see 3/5 of nothing at all going down into the braking area of a very difficult corner. And that, of course, Jeremy, is also where the closing speeds are greatest on the slow cars.
It certainly is. And the cars are bucking around through here in the turn 1 in particular. It's a really tough work out there. Let's go down to the pit lane. In third place now is David Brabham in the Highcroft Racing camp. We'll hear from him in the pit lane.
Duncan Dayton is team principal for Highcroft Racing. You're closely watching that monitor. What did you see on that restart?
Well, it looked like the lead 3 cars took off a little bit earlier than everybody else did. It was symptomatic of us pitting and filling up with fuel, so we knew that was a risk, but we're trying to get off strategy a little bit and see if we can sneak one in here.
That said, we keep talking about this new program. How proud are you of this team to pull everything together so quickly and put yourself in a position to at times lead the 12 Hours of Sebring?
It's pretty incredible. I mean, big thanks to Michelin and HPD and Worth Research for putting this all together. We didn't get the car until Saturday, so it's the fact that it's running at the front is a real testament to all the guys who've worked on the project.
We know this car was built really for Le Mans. That's been your ultimate goal, is to go and win Le Mans. But we haven't quite heard exactly what your plans are. How are they coming together?
Well, I think the best way to assure that we're going to be there, which we're going to be there, is to have a good run here today. And I think we've showed the potential of the car. And literally, we've just started playing with it, so we don't know how to set it up really yet as well as it could be, I'm sure. And so there's a lot more to come, I think.
Hey, thanks, Duncan.
Thanks.
One of the nicest men you could meet in the pit lane, Duncan Dayton, a no mean driver himself. Now there is the NGT GTC car from third position, and that's going to be sitting there for 4 minutes. Now, that is going to take him right out of contention for the moment at least, but as we've seen, things can change. This is going to be the longest 4 minutes of Carlos Kaufmann's life as he's sitting there. Just going back to Duncan Dayton and the whole Highcroft Racing thing as well. Well, I was just wondering, there is the... Oh, that's a problem for the class leader in the GTC category, the Magnus Racing car. That looks to be a puncture on the right front of that car. Jeremy, drama aplenty. Does nobody want this GTC win?
Wow, it's amazing.
Damien Faulkner's going to go back to the lead, having been a lap down. Faulkner's been flying before that last yellow flag. Got his lap back.
He has, and he's already gone across the line just now. And here is the 077 car coming onto pit lane, as we saw another former leader in the class still sitting there on pit lane, serving that penalty. Here, though, now comes John Potter. He is the team owner of Magnus Racing. He's picked up that puncture somehow, and he'll have to change that tyre right here now. They'll change all 4 tyres.
Yeah, you've got to. Well, you don't have to, but it'd be a good idea. You might as well balance it all up, fill it with fuel. Duncan Ender is going to be the driver who benefits from this in the TRG number 066. And there is the 054 of Damien Faulkner. He's been a booth guest with us before at Petit Le Mans. I've commentated on him winning back-to-back championships in the Porsche Carrera Cup in the UK. He was in Super Cup for the last few seasons, and he was across here, as Jeremy mentioned earlier on. Oh, that's looks like fluid leaking from the front of that car. That's a radiator gone there. That's the Porsche Achilles heel, if I dare say that, because it's in the front of the car rather than the back. There's been contact there, Jeremy, or the flailing rubber has done for that right front radiator.
Yeah, A or B in that instance. There's the other car still sitting there.
Meanwhile,
he'll be steaming away as well, but from different parts of the car, I guess. But yeah, there is Damien Faulkner. He's coming through here now. He's 34 years of age now. It's hard to believe for Damien Faulkner. When another car off here, that's the Performance Tech Motorsport 018. Had been off the road earlier on, back on the road, now off again. So all sorts of dramas going on.
Yeah, and you saw just how much talk that K-Tech engine's got as he laid rubber for a couple of gears there. Jarrett Boone, we saw off the circuit before. Now, look, this is a great pickup again from our camera techs. He's offline there, trying to go around, clips the debris. Now, whether that just took his eye off the road a little bit, or whether he was on the marbles on the wrong, well, that's just been swept, that very part of the track, but a mistake anyway by Jarrett Boone. Remember, we saw him facing the wrong direction earlier on. So he's learning. At least it's not the same corner. Remember the Jacques Villeneuve, Gilles Villeneuve way of driving, spin at every corner and back it off just enough so you don't, but only spin once. Well, maybe that's the Jarrett Boone way as well. Back to Faulkner leading the GTC category. Jeremy said he came across here to apply his trade in single-seaters a few years ago now, and had a pretty decent run at it. But again, a driver, and how many times have we said this about various people today, ran out of funding way before he ran out of talent and got to where he should be. And look at him sniffing around the back of that LMPC car. Don't need to do him there, Damien, absolutely not. And I'm delighted for him to be in these longer races. He clearly knows Porsches very well. Not every driver, not even every good driver, Jeremy, gets on with the very particular handling characteristics. And sometime later that day, the 030 is out after 4 minutes standing still, which will have seemed like an hour. Yeah, not every driver, not even every good driver, gets to grips with Porsches, whether they're GTC Porsches or GT Porsches.
Yeah, they're certainly a very different animal to drive compared to most other racing machines you're going to come across, be they open wheel or even closed wheel cars. So there's very definitely an art to driving a Porsche, and Damien Faulkner is one of the guys that picked it up very quickly. He had that opportunity to do the British Carrera Cup Championship and ended up winning that a couple of times in pretty short order, didn't he? And then moved on into the Super Cup in Europe, finished second a couple of times in that. He's done a couple of long distance races before. He's only raced at Daytona, but not yet in the American Le Mans series. And as we heard earlier on, he's been 10 years hankering after riding this series, and finally it's his opportunity now, and here he is in the lead of the race in GT Challenge.
Good day for the Irish today in St Patrick's Week. Stopped England getting the Grand Slam in rugby. Sorry if I've spoiled that if you've got it on TiVo, but there'll be a lot of Irish followers who will be wondering why we haven't mentioned that. Hugh Chamberlain will be crying into his beer as an English rugby supporter.
I saw Hugh just before the start of the race, actually, and he said, make sure you come and give me an update on what the score is in the rugby match, really, unless the England are losing.
Yeah, they got absolutely hammered today. I think they'll still stay at the Six Nations, the RBS Six Nations, because the other results went their way. Nevertheless, Damien Faulkner pedalling his way I seem to remember him doing a sports car race. Remember John Mangaletti's series in Europe? He did a sports car race in Ireland in the pouring rain and jumped into one of the SR2 cars, I think, and won the race for the team and helped them win the championship as a one-off drive. So it's no stranger to multi-class and multi-format racing. Qualified the car in 3rd position. The car's been down as far as 8th, and he's on his 9th lap of the lead. And look at this, hassling the back of the Robertson Ford GT here.
It's Andrea Robertson, I think, at the wheel of that car at the moment.
Just look at how he's able to position the car so much easier. The Yokohama tyres revelling in these competitions.
She comes a Rebellion car.
Right, look forward and backwards now. This is the difficulty, isn't it, when you're in a GT car? Well done, Damien.
Yes.
Well done indeed, mate. That could have been disaster for everybody concerned. Now he puts himself in the mirrors of the Ford GT. He's got one of the Peugeots coming in. Look how he backs off as the faster prototypes come through. He makes his intentions absolutely clear that he's not going to pull out, gives himself a gap so that he can react to what the car in front is doing. That's real heads-up driving by the Irishman. Now he's got the opportunity, and look how quick these GT3 cars are down the back straight. The challenge cars to GT3 specs, fantastic piece of engineering, built on the same production line as the road cars, and basically it's like a trim level. Instead of saying I'll have leather streets and the stereo upgrade, you'll say can I have the Cup car instead, please?
Yeah, well, you can see how much narrower the Porsche GT3 Cup car was there compared to the Doran Ford GT of Andrea Robertson, and Damien Faulkner using that straight line speed advantage to his exactly, that he did exactly what he needed to do.
Patience
and now
in the part of the lap.
Absolutely right.
That lap
and he's
there,
got a handy lead now in GT Challenge.
That lap there, show that the GT and GTC drivers, that's how you deal with being passed and passing, even when you're leading the class. Oh, lost the front end just a little bit there. Tad late on the brakes, but patience where you could see he wanted to be past the GT40, the Ford GT, didn't get through. Waited until he knew he had the advantage, made sure he didn't mess up anybody else's lap either. Good stuff, Damo. Haven't even had a chance to shake his hand this week. Meantime, down at the hairpin. See, if you're staying at Chateau Elan or you're down there, you can actually sit in the rooms on your balcony or look through the windows and watch the racing down there, and there's always plenty of action. And this is LMPC action that we're watching now.
It is indeed. That's one of the cars that had some problems earlier on, and the 005 car there, I think, isn't it? The second place car in LMP Challenge. The blue and silver car going around the outside there. Nice move by Jonathan Bennett. He is the owner of Composite Resources and the owner of this team. He's been wanting to race for many, many years. Last year, he did some races in the Coupe-Tard Prototype Lights Championship, sort of step below the American Le Mans Series. And he was very deliberate about the way he's gone about his racing. He set up a team there. He's hired some very, very good people. Morgan Brady is the team manager there. He's been around in Atlantic teams and other teams over the years as well, so a lot of experience. Young guy, but lots of experience. A very head-smart young man. And he's put together, since then, he decided to move up into the LMP Challenge Series. He bought the Level 5 Motorsports crew. He's hired engineers like Burke Harrison and Mark Showman, who've got a massive amount of experience in all sorts of different cars. And he's got Ryan DeYell on the strength, Frankie Montecalvo, a youngster who's really making strides in the sport. And this is a result. It's a really good-looking operation, and that team is going to be here to stay. And he is another man who has his eyes set firmly on being at Le Mans sometime in the not-too-distant future.
Frankly, you can't knock him for that, can you?
No, but he's gone around it. He's a very smart man. Is John Bennett. He goes about it the right way, not trying to jump, not trying to run before he can walk, one step at a time. But most of the key to motorsports, isn't it, as a team owner, is to surround yourself with good people. That's exactly what he's done. Another good guy on that team is Mike Sales, who's been a team manager in Champ Cars, Indy Cars, and of course with Fernandez Racing as well, more recently in the ALMS.
We're into the last third of the race. 8 hours has just ticked over. 3 hours and 54 minutes ridden here at Sebring. the shadows, as you can see there, just beginning to lengthen. What does that mean? Well, it means that temperatures are just going to start to drop in the air. The track will hold on to its temperature for a while, but not as much as some of the darker asphalt tracks do that really soak up the heat of the day. But it also means that going down into turn 17, it's going to be very, very difficult indeed to see. How difficult? Yeah, there you go. Fancy much of that? Imagine what that's like in a closed car when we can wipe our camera, as we've just done. But even that, the dust, even the tiny particles of dust are picking up the light on the number 2 of Alan McNish as he closes in on the, I think that's one of the P2 level 5 cars. Yes, it is. Yeah. And he goes through. So that car again back out after having its problems earlier on. That was a rear wishbone, we were told. Sounded like it might have pulled out a drive shaft when that happened. That rear wishbone went clunk earlier on for level 5. So Alan McNish just basically now in the mode of getting the number 2 Audi as far up the timing and scoring monitor as he can. He's in 6th and he is 2 laps behind Chris Dyson in 5th, and that's his target to get some more points. There's another 2 laps behind, another lap, excuse me, behind 4th place, and then another 2 laps behind 3rd. So it would take some problems to befall the people very far ahead of him, but his pace at the moment 151.3 as against Chris Dyson's 157.4. But remember, it is almost a 2-minute lap around here. There is the 3rd place car, David Brabham, 155.2 last time around for Brabs, keeping pace-ish with Loic Duval. Duval hasn't disappeared in the distance. He's 6 or 7 seconds since that restart when he went past David Brabham into turn 3.
That's exactly right, and the gap between from 1st to 2nd, it was 20 seconds when they took the restart. It's now 24 between 1st and 2nd, so really very little difference there. And yeah,
you'll lose
you're
that
right,
in a lap in traffic.
Absolutely you will. And David Brabham, you know, he's about another 6 seconds or so farther back in 3rd place on board here with David as he sets his sights into coming into turn 10 now with the Core Autosport LMP Challenge car ahead of him.
Isn't it great from a personal point of view, doing the race call as we do, watching the television pictures that the viewers on ESPN3.com see around the world, that the detail that we're seeing now of the cars in front and how much easier it is to identify the cars even with our not in the first flush of use eyesight, dare we say.
And we've had great onboards from a whole bunch of different cars, and we were on board, weren't we, with Alan McNish a few minutes ago, and right behind him, in his wheel tracks, is Mike Rockenfeller, and in the last time around, they've just come across the line again, in 1 minute 50.7 each of them, so going significantly quicker than anybody else at the moment.
This is the 33 car for Level 5 Motorsports, the coupe, so that's back out again. That was the one that had some early problems too, and now back with Brabs. Listen to that V8 across the line, down into turn number 1. Now, you know, there's hardly even a lift there. I remember watching Marco Andretti in the previous iteration of this car, a couple of seasons ago on the Wheels Down Winter Test, just going absolutely flat out through turn number 1. More downforce in those days for particularly the P2 cars, as we're just watching 1 or 2 highlights.
Or low lights.
Low lights for the 052 team. Certainly a low light for Ryan Lewis, who was out of a very strong position in LMPC with that engine fire. Can't see anybody queuing up to leave and go home as Damien Faulkner continues.
Damien Faulkner coming up on another GT Challenge car. Just ahead of him there is car number 011. That's a brand new team this year. JDX Motorsports is a formation of Jeremy Dale and Harrison Bricks. Harrison Bricks, he and his late father, unfortunately, Harry Bricks, they've been around sports car racing for a long time. Jeremy Dale, he raced sports cars himself very successfully till a horrible crash at Road Atlanta some time ago now, and broke his legs very badly. Since then he's come back into the team ownership ranks. He was a team manager for Rousport when they moved into the Chap Car World Series in Atlantics before that, 10 years or so ago. less than that. And then after that team went away, he's been trying to get his own organization onto the track, and finally they've done it with the help of a couple of Colorado businessmen. One of them is Chris Thompson and Scott Blackwell, and those two are sharing the car, generally speaking, this year, along with Nick Ham, who's got a wealth of experience. Unfortunately, Chris Thompson had some commitments that didn't allow him to drive this weekend. So it's Chris Cumming, a long-time Star Mazda driver and also triathlete from Vancouver in Canada, who's taken the place of Chris Thompson this weekend. And Chris Cumming is now running in third place in GT Champs. I was talking to those guys last night, and they said, look, we're not trying to win this race. All we're trying to do is keep our noses clean, make no mistakes, and we reckon if we can do that, we might be able to come away with a podium and finish. And that is exactly the position they've put themselves in right now.
Well, the shots earlier on, it almost looked like it was snowing here at Sebring. I can assure you it isn't.
Ash from the fires.
Maybe ash from the fires, maybe a bit of pollen from the trees or something like that, but plenty of detail on the pictures here on ESPN3.com and AmericanLeMans.com. It's Jeremy Shaw and John Hindhaugh in the booth as we are into the last third of the race, and the GT battle continues to rage on with Joey Hand ahead of Jimmy Bruni, 56 BMW from 51 Ferrari, 55 Bill Auberlen is only another handful of seconds further back. He's got about 12 seconds or thereabouts, 11 seconds on Tommy Milner in the first of the GM Chevy, or the Chevy Corvettes, excuse me, in fourth place. Wolf Hensler still hanging on there, just 6 seconds further back, and I don't want to curse them or anyone around them. I really hope that Fulton Tyres Porsche team get a good result here, because they've worked really hard. And you were talking about people wanting to walk before they could run. They came in, remember, put the definite toe in the water. First of all, they had a Ford GT, didn't they, before they went and bought a brand new Porsche and entered the full season and started building tyres for that. A very sensible way to go about their motor racing. Yes, they're a corporation, but even so, there's no sense in throwing money away. They've done it in a sensible, ordered and logical way.
Indeed they have. It's a model way to go racing. Good on them. That battle for GT with Joey Hand leading by a little bit less than 2 seconds over Jimmy Bruni, and that battle is actually bringing them closer on the road to the 9th place overall car, the LMPC leader Michael Gouache, who's not quite able, generally speaking, to turn the same sort of lap times as his more youthful teammate Dane Cameron, of course, but still doing a fine job. And just ahead of them, not too far, a few laps ahead of them, there's a battle developing now for 6th place overall between the two Audis. Alan McNish and Mike Rockefeller is within 2 seconds of him in that battle.
Yeah, I think they'll be just getting their heads down and trying to catch Chris Dyson. Here's the 2nd place car, and I've got to say, Jeremy, you've tipped these guys all week for a decent result. The beginning of the show, ABC colleagues were setting this up as a battle between old and new, and actually that was a very sensible thing to do, because there was the old Ferrari 430 and the new Ferrari 458 and the new BMW at the head of the field as the old Audis, and the new 01 Highcroft, the new Peugeots. Also, though, we almost forgot about the... Oh, goodness me, look at the lack of visibility there as David Branham has to make a split-second decision as which side of the track he's going to into turn number 17. That's why it's called Sunset. But the old Peugeot has really done the guys proud, and that insurance policy, or whatever you want to call it, looks like it might well be paying out today for Peugeot and for Oregon.
It does. It is. Just a quick note. I mean, that view they have going down into Sunset, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
No, absolutely.
There's still another at least half an hour or so before the sun. I mean, literally sets at the end of the straightaway. It's going to be almost impossible to see down there. There again is David Batten from the outside this time. And again, the same gap he is behind the race leader, 30 seconds behind Stefan Sarrazin, is this 3rd place overall car of David Braben. That HBD engine singing along very, very happily at 3rd place.
Other parts of the circuit as well. That's going down at the hairpin. It won't be quite so bad there.
Pretty close.
But it's not great, is it? Just in the GTC, we were setting up Duncan Ender getting into second place in the 066 GTC car. That has happened, of course, with the problems surrounding his competition, the long 4-minute hold for the infraction for the 030 car, and then the problem with the 077 Magnus Racing with that front tyre, and subsequently with the radiator being hauled. So TRG up into second place in GTC, although about a minute behind Faulkner, who leads for Black Swan Racing at the moment. In third is still that 011 of JDX Racing, and Chris Cumming, the Canadian, at the wheel of that car, as Jeremy mentioned. As into the pit lane comes Alan McNish, comes Mike Rockenfeller in the number 1 Audi, the first of the leading runners to pit in this cycle around. Remember, he had that car had a nightmare last time around, 3 pit visits to get a normal pit stint done. And again, just look at how much dust is blowing around in there.
And he caught right up to the tail of Alan McNish before he came in for this pit stop. He'd been turning some very, very fast laps. Both of the Audis have been running really quickly, far and away the quickest cars on the track. And now it's just a routine service there for Mike Rockefeller, and away he goes.
No tyres, diesel only, sulphur-free clean diesel, gas to liquid technology, and now we're being told that for the first time in the American Le Mans Series, we're going to have someone. I'll have the hamburger flag. That is a mechanical. The ILMC mandating, the ACO rules mandating that you must have 2 headlights and 2 tail lights at all times, and the 036 car must have lost one or both at the rear end of the car, and is being pulled in for a mandatory pit stop to get that put right.
And that's not good news. That is the class leader in LMP Challenge, and the gap they have over Jonathan Bennett in second place is only around about a lap or so. So that is not what that team needs. They're going to have to hope it's going to be a very quick fix and get it underway again.
What you need for that is one of those stick-on LED battery lights.
There's that car.
And you throw it on the back. Now let's have a look at the back of this car. No lights. I'm looking at 2 tail lights there. And let's have a look at the front.
No problem there.
Well, no, I'm seeing that as 2 tail lights lit. So is it is it that car, or has it been misidentified? We'll have another check as it goes away from us. Oh, now. Are they both? Yes, they are. They are both there. With the sun shining on them, and even with the sun shining on them, both tail lights are illuminated. So the Genoa Racing team will be going, excuse me. Meantime, the stock windshield wiper is pulled up. It's got a stronger spring, as the leader, Stefan Sarrazin, is in the pit lane.
They bring the car in. It's going to be a pretty routine stop. They are not changing drivers. They are, however, putting in a full load of fuel. They were debating as to whether they were going to change tires. They've got their hands on the tires, but they're not bringing them into the lane. They think they can go double stints on this. Remember, this car debuted on July 27th of this year, last year. Officially had its debut to the public in February. It's really had a fair amount of test miles, but they're getting even more on today, and now they're finding out they both test and win.
Couple of weeks' time, they're back at Paul Ricard in the south of France to try again at a 30-hour test in preparation for Le Mans. Paul Ricard, a well-known high-speed test track, actually owned by Bernie Ecclestone of Formula One. Well, we're going to have a quick look again at the 036 car, because the IMSA officials have asked to have a look at it, and there are the tail lights. So this is being looked at the moment. This is like having a replay official. It's going up to the fourth official there for adjudication. As in comes Alan McNish from 6th position. Still only those 5 laps behind the leader. And they've pretty much held their own. If it hadn't been for the problems of that car earlier on, tyres brought out. I would doubt they're going to be used if McNish is staying in the car. No sign of the Scotsman climbing out. They were having a good look round the front. Rick de Bruyne, what were they looking at there?
Well, to be honest with you, they don't actually know. I think it was just one of those just-in-case looks. You know, they were going down, making sure there was nothing there, because otherwise they would have gone to it immediately, and they didn't seem to have any stress. It was one guy who was looking. They seemed to be relatively casual about it. More importantly, they didn't stop him on the way out, so either they didn't see anything or they can't see if there is something.
Well, while the fuel was going in, of course, they wouldn't have been able to even take debris out the front had it been there. We've seen penalties called for that. I remember the Pinos at Mosport a few years ago getting caught for that one. Let's have a look and see if we can see anything. Front end looks good to me. As McNish is back into the fray, and he's joined just behind David Brabham, although clearly laps behind Brabs.
And I guess Jimmy Bruni must have made a pit stop as well in car number 51. I don't think we saw that, but that's dropped from second place in GT down to sixth place in GT. It's Joey Hand still leading in the BMW car number 56. And Bill Oblin, his teammate, is about 12 seconds back in second place. So BMW 1-2 at the moment.
So Joey Hand,
almost a BMW 1-2-3. We've got Tommy Milner now in third place.
Yeah.
Of course, now driving for GM Chevy Corvette.
Yeah, and that's going to confuse the living daylights out of me looking at that and thinking exactly the same. McNish now comes up on traffic at the treble,
including the third place car, or second place car now, of David Brabham.
It's in there somewhere, Alan, honestly.
Yeah.
How are you meant to see anything in that? That's what's actually going on, but what Alan can see is that. And that's David Brabham right ahead of him, taking a slightly different line, tighter to the corner. That means he'll drift out off the apex. Alan McNish pulls it tighter to the right. 1, 2, 3 right wide with the AF Corsa car. But that Highcroft car's got some power off the corner and really pinged across the start-finish line.
Very interesting that, because McNish tried to set him up there so he could get a good run off the corner and then get a draft onto the straightaway, and he wasn't able to make that pass happen. So that's very, very interesting indeed.
Not a battle for position. This is McNish trying to take one lap back from the second place car as the Oak Racing machine, and McNish has gone round the outside. McNish in an audacious manoeuvre, and the outside of 3 has gone through. I suspect that David Brabham knows it's not for position, but nevertheless, that is Alan McNish at his absolute imperious best.
Great stuff. And the LMPC leader, Michael Guasch, has brought his 036 car onto pit lane. We hope it's not because of the penalty. We presume it's just a routine pit stop for that car, running in 10th place overall, but now it's going to drop behind all the GT cars.
McNish and Brabham, two greats of sports car racing. Look how far McNish is back here.
Yeah, but nowhere to go for David Brabham, is there?
And McNish is going to go to the outside here. Here he comes. Sees the gap. I'll get a bit of grip round the outsider here, I think. Oh, yes, thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, a little bit indecisive there from David Brabham, wasn't it? But
well, but he's in second place.
Absolutely.
He's only 11 seconds away from the leader. And, you know, he is turning laps and turning laps and turning laps.
Yep, that's the goal. Finish the race.
I am... There's so many things that I'm impressed about here at the 59th running of the Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring, and Brabham and Franchitti and Pagenaud and Duncan Dayton and the rest of the Highcroft team is certainly one of them. I had a very, very quick chat at turn 1 with Nick Worth early on in the week on Thursday when I was watching the cars out there. He was looking very chipper, a very clever man, fantastic bloke to sit down and have a cup of tea with and talk about car design. Loves the challenge of sports car racing. Yes, he's involved in Formula 1, but loves the ability to think slightly more laterally that you're given in sports car racing. Now those tail lights, now they've got the last pit, so they're coming out of the last pit. I wonder if there's a making and a braking. They've had a quick look at that. Let's go down to the pit lane, Richter Bro.
Indeed, they were concerned about whether the fact that they had those twin tail lights. So after they got the driver change, what they did was they went in the back and checked. But if the light had not been working, this was going to be the replacement. See how it's got Velcro on the bottom? They've got another Velcro piece that's already attached to the car. They were simply going to attach this on, and this was going to work as the rear tail light for that particular car when it goes back out. The good news is the tail lights were working correctly. They didn't have to add it.
Do you know, that's very funny, Rick, because talking with Jamie earlier in the week in the production space in pit lane, exactly what I said. Get some battery-operated tail lights or some of those little LED lights that you put underneath the countertops of your kitchen units and just bang them. Stick those on so that you've always got something there. 8 hours and 25 minutes. That's Michael Glash in the Genoa Racing LMPC. He is leading his class in 14th position overall. Well, I think actually it's just swapped to Jens Peterson in that pit stop. But he is back out and the lights are still showing at the back. Coming up to 5 minutes to 7 o'clock here at Sebring. The shadows certainly lengthening, but we've still got something like 3.5 hours, or if you prefer 2.5 Formula One races to go before the end of the race. Your leader is Loic Duval by 14.1 seconds to David Brabham in the 0-1, so the 1-0 leads the 0-1 at the head of the field. It's the Mobil 1, 12 hours of Sebring from Sebring International Raceway, brought to you by Fresh from Florida.
There was a town held captive by an evil gas pump. It fed on people's hard-earned money. But along came the Michelin Man, who reminded them the right tire changes everything. And with fuel-efficient tires in place, that evil gas pump wasn't so evil anymore. Michelin Energy Saver AS tires can help save up to 109 gallons of fuel. Michelin, a better way forward.
Can changing your motor oil really change the world? Yep. Because this is not just another crude oil. This is new G oil. Ultimate biodegradable high-performance oil. Made right here on our soil from renewable bio-based sources. So it's time to make the change official. Because if G can race in the American Le Mans Series, you can bet the Redwoods your car can run on it too. New G oil, only from Green Earth Technologies. Get more at getg.com.
Loic Duval continues to lead the Mobil 1, 12 hours of Sebring, presented by Fresh from Florida here at Sebring International Raceway. Can't complain about the weather, can't complain about the racing, can't complain about the... Nothing to complain about, Jeremy. All is good. Everything's right with the world. We've got through another dark winter and we're back with motor racing again. I'm a very